Here we are, Jake Humphries, Platinum Sports Picks, NFL. I tell you what, I'm so excited for this season. We had a really big year last year, and I'm ready to do it again. We've had some late season NRL struggles, which was supposed to be one of our bread and butter sports, and a little bit of a fall through on that has made me even more motivated to just come through and show you guys what I'm all about with the American football. A little bit about myself and my history with American football. The first game I watched was in 2005, Minnesota Vikings versus the Green Bay Packers. Vikings won 23-20, and I told myself that I'd support the team that won that game, and that was 11 years ago now. I've been a Vikings fan ever since, and I started betting on the NFL a few years ago. But last year was my first year that I was really passionately following it and kind of studying the numbers and studying the line movements and, all that kind of thing. I've always been extremely familiar with the personnel, the teams, the divisions, the history, dating back to, 2005, 2006, and even before then, based on some of the old films I've watched and things like that. But NFL is just second nature to me. It's my number one sport. I like it more than the NRL. I like it more than tennis. I like it more than mixed martial arts. I like it more than anything. It's my favourite sport. I play it as well. Played for a couple of teams in the last 3 or 4 years, and I love the sport. I love everything about it, and I don't know if there's anything I love more than betting on it. And in regards to the betting, we've got a lot of people who have signed up with me. And it's been a bit of a hefty price for some people, but the results are going to warrant that charge for sure. So tomorrow is our very first game of the season. It is the Carolina Panthers at the Denver Broncos. This is a Super Bowl rematch. So for those of you guys who don't know, traditionally the Super Bowl matchup from the previous year will be played or the next year in Week 1, the opening game, and that's what we've got. We've got the Carolina Panthers at the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, first of all, opened as a 1-point favourite. This was a long time ago. As soon as the odds were released, they opened as a 1-point favourite. They've since then drifted out to about a 3-point underdog. So there's been 4 points worth of line movement. And I think I can credit that movement to the fact that Denver have had some questions surrounding the quarterback position. They had Mark Sanchez come in from the free agency because obviously Peyton Manning, the guy who led them to a Super Bowl last year, he's retired. So he's retired and they were forced to scratch around and find a new QB. They've got a guy, Trevor Siemian, who is a backup to Peyton Manning last year. They looked at Mark Sanchez, who's a journeyman who hasn't really proved his worth anywhere. Now, they've ended up going with Trevor Siemian, who is a young guy, an unproven guy, and, he's going to be starting for the Denver Broncos in this game, and he's got a very tricky defense to deal with. The Carolina Panthers defensive unit is very strong. Obviously, they lost one of their best players over the offseason, the cornerback Josh Norman, but as far as the boys in the front seven go, they still have a very strong defense, and they're going to be the ultimate challenge for Trevor Siemian. I think Siemian is going to have maybe a little bit of joy passing the ball against this Carolina Panthers team, but as far as running the ball goes, I don't know how much he's going to be able to lean on that running attack. Now, just as far as this game goes, a lot of you people know, and I preach it all the time. I never ever stop saying it. I hate betting on what everybody else is betting on. I like to look at where the money's going, and I like to go the other way. That's what Josh and I do with a lot of sports. We oppose public flow. We wait for the public to drive a line to a position where it's in our favour, and we take that line. We go the other way. Now, this doesn't always work. If you isolate a popular public pick, 1 or 2 per week or 1 a day with baseball or whatever, then you can certainly capitalise. But I think for the most part, if you're going to be betting on what everyone else is betting, if you're going to be following the leader, and not taking that less travelled road, you're going to have to make sure that you're doing the right thing about it, because these bookies are sharp and they put out these lines anticipating where the action is going to come in. They don't know who's going to win the game most of the time, but they put lines out not as a predictive method, but as to say, okay, we're going to put out this line. We think action is going to come on this side or both sides or whatever. And for using this as an example, they put out the Carolina Panthers as +1, and they've gone all the way from +1 into -3. Now, I'm sure that the bookies aren't surprised that's happened. So maybe they're thinking, all right, well, we're going to release Carolina at +1. Obviously, there was some exterior circumstances that changed this line a little bit. But even with other lines, like I'll take you to another game in Week 1, for example. The Indianapolis Colts started -5.5. The Detroit Lions started +5.5 on the road. And this line has now gone 2 points into -3.5 for the Colts. And that's not by accident. I'm sure the bookies aren't too surprised that they've drawn a lot of public action or a lot of public money on the Detroit Lions, a lot of volume. Sometimes they probably are. Sometimes they're not too sure what's going on. But they're not panicking at the drastic line movement. If it's moving, it's normally moving because they expected it to, and because they don't mind that it's moving. You know what I mean? Like they, if you see a line move in one direction and you think, oh well, everybody's betting on that line, it's moving in one direction, let's get on it, let's follow everyone else. No, it's not going to work like that. They know what's going to happen. They're sharp. I mean, I'm not saying they know what's going to happen in regards to the result, but they know where they're going to get action on a lot of these lines, and all of this crazy line movement a lot of the time. Sometimes it is by a little bit unanticipated public flow, but a lot of the time it's kind of what they thought was going to happen. In the case of tomorrow night, I can already tell you that a lot of people are betting on the Carolina Panthers. They like the fact that Cam Newton is still in the offense for the Carolina Panthers, the MVP of last season. They like the fact that the Panthers have a bit of a chip on their shoulder and they can kind of get revenge in this situation. They like the fact that the Denver Broncos have a debutant quarterback who hasn't played before in the NFL against a very, very tricky defense. They like all of that, and they're all flooding to the window to bet on the Carolina Panthers. And I've always been an advocate of home underdogs. Home underdogs are a very, very profitable team in this sport. If you get a team who has their back against the wall, a lot of people are writing them off at home, you can often get a big performance from that home team. Do I think that's going to happen in this situation? I'm not too sure. There's a lot of question marks in this game just because I have never ever seen Simeon play. I don't know. He could throw 5 interceptions and have a really, really bad day. What I do know about this game is that Cam Newton is a legitimate quarterback. He's a very, very, very good player. And this offense of the Carolina Panthers is going to have a lot more... probably, from what I'm thinking, a lot more rhythm, and it's going to be a lot more cohesive, at least to start the game off. So, looking at this, hey, I don't like following the public. A, I don't like doing that. B, I don't like betting on a team where there's a debutant, a new guy coming out who I haven't seen anything of before. But at the same time, I like home underdogs. This one, it's going up and down for me in regards to who I think is going to win. I'll read you a few trends for this Week 1 game. Super Bowl winners are 10-5-1 against the spread in their last 16 home openers. Super Bowl losers are 3-13 against the spread in their last 16 home openers. Under is 4-0 in the Panthers' last 4 season openers. Over is 5-1 in the Broncos' last 6 season openers. Covers consensus, this is www.covers.com. The public is strongly backing the favourite in this Super Bowl rematch, with a big 71% of wagers on the Panthers. As for the total, 64% of wagers were backing the under. And this total has gone from 43.5 into 41.5. And, normally I don't like following the trend, but I have to agree with the public and say that the under is probably the better play. So as far as what I'm doing, I know you all want to hear what I'm doing for this game that's on tomorrow. What I'm going to say is that I'm probably not going to have a pick on either team to win. I'm not going to have a pick on head-to-head. I'm not going to have a pick on the line. I'm probably not even going to have a pick on the total. But one thing I do like is Denver Broncos under 19.5 team total. Now, if you hear this on the podcast, don't go and bet on it straight away. Nothing is official until I press post in these groups, okay? But just so you know, for this first game, I think Denver under 19.5 team total is something that I really, really like on the basis of Trevor Siemian probably not being able to kick things off really quickly with the offense. This Carolina Panthers defense is going to be extremely stingy. I think the trend of this game is going to be defense. It's going to be low scoring, and I don't know how well Denver are going to be able to move the ball not only early on, but just in general. They don't have a very, very, very strong running back to lean on. CJ Anderson's a tough guy, but I know that no matter who you are, no matter who's running the ball, it's going to be a really hard day at the office against this Carolina Panthers defense. I think the onus from both teams is going to be on defense. I think this game's going to be low scoring. I do think that this Carolina Panthers offense has a lot more potential to put up what they're expected to put up, which is 22.5 on the team points two-way on Bet365, but I think this Denver Broncos team may have a bit more of a tricky time putting up the points that they are required to do so. I'm just going to have a quick look at the first half team total. Denver Broncos first half team total under 9.5. I also like that one too, just on the basis of this maybe being a bit of a slow churning mission for the Denver Broncos offense. However, that's a little bit low for mine. If it was 10.5, maybe, but I absolutely like Denver Broncos under 19.5 team total, and I'm going to have a look at that one pretty closely, and that is definitely a strong lean of mine for the very first game. Now, let's pump through the rest of them. I will probably go a little bit quicker throughout the remainder of the games, just because, that is what we just spoke about is the most significant game of the weekend, and what a lot of people wanted to know my thoughts on, undoubtedly. And I've just answered your questions. I cannot tell you who's going to win the game. I can tell you that I'm incredibly excited, but I do have a lean on the Denver Broncos under 19.5 team total. They've got a new quarterback. They are coming up against a team in the Carolina Panthers who are going to be so motivated. And even though the Panthers may have some question marks in the secondary, I'm not sure if they're going to pull the trigger with Simeon to try and exploit that, especially early on, especially with the pass rush the Carolina Panthers are capable of bringing. Now, the second game, I'm going to go, per covers.com, I'm going to go in order. We've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I can tell you that this line right now is 3. It opened at 3, and pretty much it is 3 everywhere. The Atlanta Falcons are a home favorite in this NFC South divisional matchup. Do I agree with this line? Yeah, probably. I think that, you could see the Atlanta Falcons slip into -2.5. There's quite a bit of steam coming in on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I can see on scoresandodds.com that there's quite a bit of juice coming in on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. However, then on covers.com, it's looking like the Atlanta Falcons are the more back team. But based on line movement, I would say that because the Atlanta Falcons opened up at 3 at -3 at $1.90, and now I can see them at -3 for $2, I think there would be a slight edge on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This one is a tricky one. It's a divisional matchup. It's probably going to be high scoring. The Atlanta Falcons have struggled over the years because their team hasn't been strong enough across the park. It's been so patchy, kind of like the Colts. They've had this really good aerial attack with Julio Jones and Tony Gonzalez in years gone by, and Roddy White. Matt Ryan has always been good to turn in 7 to 8 really quality performances per year. Devontae Freeman last year, their running back, was really good in patches but found himself off the field. But the problem was, and the problem always has been, that they can't protect their quarterback, Matt Ryan. Their offensive line has really struggled, and I think that's going to be something that they're really going to need to work on this year. And also their defense hasn't been very good. The meat of their defense, the interior, the linebackers, haven't really performed. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a team that are certainly growing and are getting strong on both sides of the ball. Jameis Winston had a pretty impressive rookie year last year, coming out of Florida State as that first overall pick. And Mike Evans, their wide receiver, is an absolute stud out of Texas A&M. Doug Martin had a bit of a resurgent year last year. So, at the same time, you look at the Buccaneers and you think, okay, well, they're an underdog. They've probably got more pieces in place across the park, but the Falcons have the better players. The Falcons have Julio Jones, who, in my opinion, is going to be the best player on the field for this game. And Matt Ryan is definitely a better quarterback than Jameis Winston at this point. As far as the Falcons, they had a poor record last year. They didn't make the playoffs. And am I going to come out and lay 3 points with the Atlanta Falcons in a dicey divisional game? Probably not. The only thing that would see me pick the Falcons in this game would be if these odds at -3 went all the way down to -1, or maybe even a pick, and maybe even $1.90 either way. That would be a scenario where I would bet on the Atlanta Falcons. But as far as this one goes, the Falcons aren't really looking like they're going to be a very trustworthy team. They have started the years quickly in the past. However, it would take probably 1.5 worth of line movement for me to take the Atlanta Falcons in this one. Not too comfy with the 3. I'm not going to take it. Now, the next game is the Buffalo Bills at the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, the Baltimore Ravens, Super Bowl champions from 2013, I believe. and the Buffalo Bills. I think the Buffalo Bills are making the switch from being a small market team to a team that the public are going to like betting on. Now, what I can tell you here is the Baltimore Ravens opened as a -2.5 favourite. They have since gone to -3, which means there's been a little bit of money that's forced that line in the Baltimore Ravens' favour. But also I can say to you that this is looking like a pretty even public game. Covers.com have got it 44% to Buffalo, 56% to Baltimore Ravens. And then the money on scores and odds has 70% for Buffalo and 30% for Baltimore. So going off what I'd like to look at, it's looking like there's been a little bit more money lately on the Bills, and that line could move back to 2.5. But as for the moment, it's at 3, and I don't like either team in this game. The Baltimore Ravens were very, very bad last year. Oh, excuse me. The Buffalo Bills, with their new coach Rex Ryan, did some good things last year, but there's still that question mark hovering over Tyrod Taylor. They got this young quarterback who is a real spark plug. He's a good runner, but he's not the most accurate passer. He's not your prototypical quarterback. He is looking like somebody. He's looking like your prototypical African-American quarterback, kind of like a Michael Vick, somebody who runs a lot but is always going to struggle perhaps with his throwing mechanics, maybe gets himself banged up a little bit too much, takes a few too many hits. But, he does work well with this running back that he has, LaShawn McCoy, and the Buffalo Bills running back, LaShawn McCoy, is kind of like Tyrod Taylor. He's a quick guy. He has a little bit of a hard time staying healthy. He's not a very bruising ball carrier, but he's very elusive, very hard to get his hands on. He's very skilled, very hard for defenders to get their hands on him. He's very skillful. And the Baltimore Ravens have Joe Flacco in quarterback, and then behind them in the backfield, they've got Justin Forsett, who just signed a new deal. And obviously the Baltimore Ravens have Steve Smith returning as well after he called for a retirement after an injury and then decided he was going to come back. So, this game, I'm kind of looking at line movement. Well, there's not a lot of line movement. I'm looking at kind of reliability amongst the players that we have. I'm not sure if Tyrod Taylor's the man to go with on the road here. It's just something that I really don't like a great deal. I just don't like this game. Like, sometimes I'm not going to be able to tell you why I don't like it. I'm just going to tell you that I really don't like it. And as far as this one goes, I really don't like it. Am I going to give you some leans? Sure. For the first game, the Atlanta Falcons -3 is a lean. And for the second game, the Buffalo Bills +3 is a lean. But it's not something that I'm really going to be pulling the trigger on yet. But hey, line movement always changes, man. Always changes the way I think about things. Okay, next one, Chicago Bears at Houston Texans. This is a game where I have literally flipped, I've done a backflip on who I like. The Chicago Bears have Jay Cutler in quarterback, traveling to the Houston Texans to have Brock Osweiler. Brock Osweiler is a big, tall, rangy dude. Kind of looks like a tall baseball pitcher. He was brought to the Houston Texans in the offseason from the Denver Broncos. Now he's coming here to kind of be their stud franchise quarterback. However, Brock Osweiler really didn't do a lot in Denver. He showed signs of promise, and he showed enough for the Houston Texans to think, hey, maybe this guy is going to be our best option in the offseason. Because the Houston Texans had Brian Hoyer, they had troubles with quarterback all of last year, so they brought in this big guy, Brock Osweiler from Denver, to kind of move them forward. They went out and got Lamar Miller and tailback, who was a productive guy in Miami. They've got DeAndre Hopkins, who is a top 5 wide receiver. Don't care what you say. They've got J.J. Watt, who is kind of like the Mike Trout of the NFL. He's a young, muscular-looking guy. Plays great defense. Is very, very good with the fans, and just puts up big numbers, but kind of is playing on a team that isn't doing as well as what he would like them to. And then basically their defense all around the board is very, very strong. They're a -5.5 favorite in this one against the Chicago Bears, and I can tell you that a lot of flow is going on the Houston Texans. And I'm not sure if I agree with that. I think the Texans, yeah, sure, they've got a lot of new pieces in place, but with a new quarterback and a new running back, how confident can you be that is going to really start gelling immediately? And the Chicago Bears, they've gone from +5.5 to in some places +6.5. And I think the Bears are seeing quite a bit of sharp money in this game, because it's looking like this could be a bit of an even betting match in terms of volume and public play, but I would say that early on there was a lot of money that came out on the Houston Texans, and actually, probably to rephrase on what I just said, going on a line movement with the Bears, the Texans moving from -5.5 to -6.5, I would probably have to say to you that it looks like the Texans are drawing a bit more of the action. And I'm not sure if that's warranted. A 6.5 line, if we could get that for the Bears, or maybe even a 7.5 line, that's a full touchdown worth of points for the Chicago Bears, who made some pretty handy defensive acquisitions in the offseason. They bolstered their linebacker core a little bit. They got rid of Matt Forte, but now they on the offensive side of the ball, they've got Kendall Langford. They've got Jay Cutler, who is probably looking at one of his last hurrahs in terms of can he be an NFL quarterback. But they've got Alshon Jeffrey and Kevin White, the rookie who they drafted last year. He's now a second year, but he's coming back from a full year on the sideline. The Chicago Bears, their team isn't horrible, and they've kind of flown comfortably under the radar in the offseason. They've got a head coach in John Fox, who is an experienced guy, and he's going to make sure his team, is ready for the first game. And I just think the Chicago Bears might be a real blue collar, hard-working spread team this year. And I'm not sure if the Houston Texans, who only just eked into a playoff spot last year on the basis of a pretty poor AFC South team, are quite ready to cover this number. So I'm going to tell you right now, if we can get the Chicago Bears at +6.5 or +7, I'm going to look at this pretty strongly. It's a fade the public play. It's a team that has gone from being a pretty publicly viewed team to being a mediocre team in this NFC North division that have kind of been overshadowed by the Packers and the Vikings. And now I think the Bears might be ready to go to the grind a little bit. I just like what they've been doing with the signings. They've got a few guys on defense. I can't tell you the exact names of the players, but I know that they've got a few improvements on the defensive side of the ball, which has really let them down in the last 10 years. And I think that this Houston Texans team, although they may be a very good team this year, might not be ready to cover a big number at home. Like the Texans aren't built like that. The Texans aren't a high-powered offense. They have, kind of a slow chugging kind of mentality where they grind teams out with their defense and score points where they have to. But they only really have one weapon on offense, and that's DeAndre Hopkins, and everybody else is kind of a little bit unproven, don't really know what's going to happen with them. And the Chicago Bears, Kevin White on one side of the ball can blow the roof off a defense, and then Alshon Jeffrey has the wingspan of an albatross. This wide receiver matchup between Jeffrey and DeAndre Hopkins is good, but then Kevin White is probably the third best wide receiver on the team, on the field rather. Making his NFL debut, but still has a whole lot of talent. So I think this matchup, this line should be around 4. And it was at 4. But there's been a lot of people hammering Houston. And I think if we can get this line at 6.5 or 7, I'm going to be interested in the Chicago Bears. So that's my take on that game. And we're moving on. We're 22 minutes in. I'll try and speed it up a little bit. But, I love doing this. I'm feeling very good about this podcast. The Green Bay Packers -4.5 at the Jacksonville Jaguars +4.5. I can tell you, without even looking, that everybody is going to be on the Green Bay Packers in this game. I'll tell you why. The Green Bay Packers have the best quarterback in the National Football League, probably. It's between Aaron Rodgers and Cam Newton and maybe a bit of Tom Brady peppered in there. But the Green Bay Packers are the Super Bowl favourites this year. It's close, but you can see them for the lowest price across the most bookmakers. It's very close between them and the Seattle Seahawks, but I'm going to say the Packers are a pretty firm Super Bowl favourite. On offense, they have Aaron Rodgers. On offense, they have Eddie Lacy. They have Jordy Nelson, who is a really talented wide receiver returning from a leg injury. They have Randall Cobb, who is a blistering wide receiver. Their defense is improving. They have Clay Matthews, who's always been holding down the fort for them. They have Hashawn Clinton-Dix on defense. Let me have a look at this Green Bay Packers depth chart. Green Bay Packers depth chart. All right, so we'll have a bit of a look here, because I want to have a look at this defense to see what's happening. What's happening for them? They've got a base 3-4 defense, which means they've got 3 linemen and 4 linebackers. Their defensive line is Daniels, LaTroy Guion, Lowry, Clay Matthews, Martinez, Barrington, Julius Peppers, Randall, Burnett, Clinton-Dix, Shields. Did anybody hear those names and think, what the hell? What's going on? Who are they? Who are those players? Because that's what I heard. This Packers offense is really high-powered. Aaron Rodgers, Eddie Lacy, Randall Cobb, Jared Cook Jr., who's a big body tight end, big target for Aaron Rodgers. Jordy Nelson, and the offensive line is quite good. David Bakhtiari, Taylor, Tretter, Lang, and Balaga in right tackle is a real stud. right, so this Packers team's good. We've established they're a pretty good team. They have an excellent quarterback. They're probably going to be playing in the postseason this year. However, the Jacksonville Jaguars cannot be overlooked this season on either side of the ball. This is a team who are opening the year at home. Okay, they have a very, very solid defense. They've got a very, very good defensive-minded coach in Gus Bradley. Their offense produced well under the radar last year. They brought in a running back, Chris Ivory, who is a bruiser and is going to be able to run for 100 yards against somebody like the Green Bay Packers. Their wide receivers are Alan Hearns, Marquise Lee, and Allen Robinson. Their tight ends are Mercedes Lewis and Julius Thomas. Their quarterback is Blake Bortles, who threw for well over 4,000 yards last year. And their offensive line is developing. Kelvin Beachum in left tackle, Luke Jokel, who was a high pick a couple of years ago. They've got Parnell in right tackle. This offensive line isn't horrible. Hopefully they can protect Blake Bortles this season. But where I'm really liking this Jacksonville Jaguars team is on defense. Dante Fowler Jr., left defensive end. Malik Jackson, who was a part of the Denver Broncos Super Bowl winning team last year, came over to Jacksonville. Roy Miller, I believe, is the other defensive tackle. Jared Odrick, who's done time at Miami, and he's just a really, really, really quality 4-3 kind of defensive end. Telvin Smith, Paul Posluszny, and Dan Scooter are the linebackers. But here's where it gets really interesting. Jalen Ramsey and Prince Amakamura are here at left cornerback. They then have Jonathan Cyprien, Tashawn Gibson in the safeties, okay? And then Devon House in the other cornerback position. This defense here for the Jacksonville Jaguars is super, super, super legit. Are they going to be able to match it with this firepower and this presumably masterful game plan that Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy will have in week 1? Maybe not. But all I'm saying to you is don't get on the public forums and see Green Bay Packers minus 4.5 or even Green Bay Packers head-to-head in a multi at $1.40 and think that this is a sure thing. The Jags have legit ballers on their team and they are capable of winning 9 games this year. Mark my words. Don't sell the Jags short this season, okay? They might be ready to do some things. And this game here, I think it's going to be pretty high scoring. I would have a lean on the over in this game, which is going with the public trend. The Jacksonville Jaguars started at +4. They've then gone out to in some places +5, +5.5. This might be another situation where, hey, if I can get them a +6.5 or +7, we might look into it. But we're not going to do it right now. I'm just cautioning you, be careful with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Be careful fading the Jags, especially at home in that sunny Florida. The Green Bay are traveling a long way away from home. It's a really big trip, pretty much coast-to-coast trip for the Green Bay Packers going down to Jacksonville. And the Jags are going to be ready, man. Next one. San Diego Chargers +7 at the Kansas City Chiefs -7. The Kansas City Chiefs probably maybe are a little bit past their peak. I think last year or the year before they had Sean Smith, they had a really healthy Jamal Charles, could have been their best opportunity to win a championship. However, they will tell you that this year is just as good of a year as any for Alex Smith and Jeremy Maclin, Travis Kelce to get the job done. Jamal Charles busted his leg up last year, who was their I'm going to do everything for my team kind of tailback. He's now on limited carries and kind of just working his way back into the team. They lost Sean Smith on defense in the cornerback position. And I believe Justin Houston is absent on this defense as well, who is just an incredible outside linebacker for them. Justin Houston, let's see where Justin Houston is, because I'm looking at his depth chart and I can't find him. Justin Houston plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, but he's going to start the season on the physically unable to perform list, and that's going to take a lot away from what they're doing on defense. The San Diego Chargers, well, they're a very disappointing franchise, top to bottom. Okay, they're a little bit like the Atlanta Falcons. They've got a capable quarterback. They've got a couple capable receivers to throw it to, but really they lack toughness. They lack defense. They lack the intuition in the last 2 minutes of either half. They just don't have a lot of kind of big play, big experience guys. They've got Phillip Rivers there, but their running backs are truly by committee. Melvin Gordon, Danny Woodhead. Oh, excuse me. Their offensive line is definitely getting better. Bit tired. We've got King Dunlap, DJ Fluker, Barksdale. Pretty solid. Antonio Gates, who is just an immortal, keeps coming back and keeps doing well. Their defense has got Melvin Ingram, Manti Te'o. Their secondary, Brandon Flowers, Dwight Lowery, Jason Verrett. So it's looking like this defense is probably getting a little bit better. But this Kansas City Chiefs team hosting the Chargers as a 7-point favourite. Keep in mind, this Kansas City Chiefs stadium broke the all-time decibel record for volume at an American football venue. In fact, I think it was a sports venue all-time. They absolutely broke the meter. They might have even got to about 3 or 4 on the Richter scale. That's a big, big home field advantage for the Kansas City Chiefs. And are they ready to cover 7 with this kind of this Jamal Charles-less conservative offense? I don't know. I would definitely have a small lean on the Chargers. You'll find this year that probably 60 to 70% of my picks are going to be underdogs, maybe even more. So I'm going to give a small lean on the Chargers, but we're going to come back with a full card on Saturday or Sunday, and this may have all changed, but early on, lean on the Chargers. About 30 minutes through, we're about halfway through, and I just want you guys to listen, to try and get inside my head, figure out what I'm thinking, all those kinds of things. It's going to be pretty dry. It's not going to be it's not going to be super entertaining. This isn't a game show. This is me just talking about the NFL, and that's what I love to do. I might take a short break soon, just because I'm starting to get a little bit, my mouth's starting to get a little bit sore. I've been talking for 30 minutes straight. I'm going to try and find a track here. I've got some music on my Spreaker. Here we go. Let's see if I can fire something up for a couple of minutes. All right, I'm going to fire up some Chance the Rapper. Won't play the whole song, but I'll step away for 2 or 3 minutes, drink some water, and I'll come back very soon to finish the rest of this round. And it's not playing. What's going on? It's loading. We're going to get it soon. It's probably going to come up and cut me off when it starts playing.
Yep. If one more label try to stop me, it's gonna be some dreadhead niggas in your lobby. You don't want no problem with me. You don't want no problem with me. Just another day at the pick up on the mail. They gon' channel riding through the streets, they be like that. You don't want 0 problems, big fella. Yup. If one more label try to stop me, it's gonna be some dreadhead niggas in your lobby. You don't want no problem with me. You don't want no problem with me. Just another day at the pick up on the mail. They gon' channel riding through the streets, they be like, there you go. You don't want no problem with me.
I love how that song stopped and restarted midway through. Man, this Spreaker website is really, really annoying. They're lucky they've still got my service. $5 a month for this thing, man. Can't even play a song. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games left. So we're not halfway, but we're halfway by duration, because I'm going to pump through this a little bit quicker. Oakland Raiders at New Orleans Saints. All of these games are on, except for the Carolina one. All of them are on at 3 a.m. New South Wales, Sydney time, whatever, Monday morning. Oakland Raiders at the New Orleans Saints. This game may be a game where I have an official pick. And, the Oakland Raiders are going to be a team that are bet on quite a lot this season. Last year was the year where the Oakland Raiders went through as an underdog and cashed, okay? They cashed against the spread. They cashed straight money line. They were cashing, okay? Now the bookies are thinking, all right, this Oakland Raiders team, they're maybe a little bit good. Maybe we have to worry about what they're going to do. Let's adjust these lines a little bit. Let's make sure that we don't get burnt on the Oakland Raiders. It's what they're going to do with the Canberra Raiders in the NRL next year. The Canberra Raiders, after finishing second this season, they're going to come back out, and they're going to be met with some really harsh lines next year. And I think that this line at the Saints for the Canberra Raiders plus 1.5, or at some bookies, looks like a straight pick 'em. $1.90 either way. I think that this line this time last year would have been closer to 5 or 6. The Saints team have taken a few steps backwards. This Raiders team have certainly taken a few steps forward. Their offense is very young. Michael Crabtree, Amari Cooper out wide. Derek Carr, Latavius Murray, quarterback and running back. Their defense is very, very good. David Emerson, Nate Allen, Reggie Nelson, and Sean Smith in the secondary. Bruce Irving as the linebackers. Khalil Mack as the defensive end, who is a beast. But this New Orleans Saints team, I do believe, is still going to give them some troubles in terms of their aerial attack. They've still got Drew Brees. They've still got Mark Ingram, Hightower, CJ Spiller. Their wide receivers, Brandon Cooks and Willie Snead. Colby Fleener is the tight end. John Kuhn is the fullback. Their offensive line is decent. This Saints team, week 1 at home against a pretty young and newly forming Raiders defense, I believe will give the Raiders some problems. Now, let's not get it twisted. This Saints defense isn't that good. They've got a couple of big boys on the team, and when I say big boys, I mean big in reputation. Some good players. Okay, so they have Cameron Jordan, they have James Laurinaitis, they have Donnell Ellaby, they have Kenny Vaccaro, Jarius Byrd. Not sure how well this defense is going to play. Who ranked? I actually think this Saints defense 2 years ago was the worst defense of all time in terms of points conceded per game. And do I think the defense is going to be that bad this year? Well, it can't be, can it? It really can't be. But, you know, I am saying that this defense can't be lent on, and I do think that people are going to be able to move the ball pretty easily against them. But I think that the Saints, let me just say something first of all. I can tell you that the Oakland Raiders are getting bet on a little bit more than the New Orleans Saints. The public reaction, they've reacted a little bit slow. They're thinking, okay, this Oakland Raiders team last year, they did a really good job. They'll beat the Saints, won't they? This is a declining Saints team. Well, maybe it's not. Drew Brees has just signed an extension. He's still an absolute genius. His offensive coordinator, Sean Payton, who is also the head coach, is an absolute genius as well. These guys, they game plan very, very well, and I think they'll be licking their lips coming up against a young and a newly formed defense in the Oakland Raiders. Now, I know the Oakland Raiders were good last year defensively, but they have thrown in a few new guys like Bruce Irving and Sean Smith, Reggie Nelson. That's 2 starting members of the secondary who are playing their very first game for the Raiders. Not saying that the Raiders are going to come out and they're going to get absolutely killed, but I do think that they might have a couple of issues against this Saints offense, who are for the most part the same as they have been for the last 3 or 4 years, and have a quarterback who has seen everything. He's won a Super Bowl, he's seen the lot. So I would be wary of the Oakland Raiders in this game, and I will tell you that the public are probably going to bet on the Oakland Raiders, and if I can get the Saints at, a good head-to-head price, or maybe even a plus line, that'd be a dream, then I might look at taking the Saints. So I think going through, my strongest leans so far have been the Bears plus 6.5 or 7, depending on what we can get. And then it would also probably be the Saints head-to-head. And then, I don't mind the Chargers either. It's going to be tricky. It's going to be interesting to see what I do end up going with. But these are the games that I'm leaning on and what I'm liking. The next one is the Cincinnati Bengals at the New York Jets. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals are one of the biggest public plays this entire week. They've gone from head-to-head $1.90 into minus 2.5. And that's just because the people love the Bengals. They love AJ Green. They love Dalton. They love their defense. They kind of got a lot of public attention last year after that tumultuous playoff game. For those of you who don't know, I'll explain it later, or you'll hear about it somewhere. And so they've come out here in this game and they've seen themselves as a $1.71 favourite, and they're being asked to cover 2.5. And in about 2 days, they're probably going to be asked to cover 3 or 3.5. Let's not forget, this Jets team, people like betting against this Jets team because they have Ryan Fitzpatrick in quarterback, and that's what I did last year. I bet against the Jets quite a lot. But they've got Ryan Fitzpatrick in quarterback, who just signed a new deal, who as far as the postseason goes, probably isn't somebody who you're going to hang your hat on, but as far as the regular season goes, did very, very well last year. They've got Matt Forte, Eric Decker, Brandon Marshall, okay? Running back, wide receiver. Their offensive line is good. Ryan Clady, Nick Mangold, they have a good offensive line. Their defense is where where we get to the real business, okay? Muhammad Wilkinson, McClendon, Richardson, okay? Aaron Henderson, Harris, whatever, in the middle, in the linebacking core. But check out this secondary. Darrelle Revis, Calvin Pryor, Marcus Gilchrist, Buster Screen. Hey, D. Milliner is backing up Buster Screen. Remember D. Milliner, that first-round pick from Alabama? Yeah, he's backing up Buster Screen. This defense is crazy. Really, really crazy. And the Cincinnati Bengals, although their offense is pretty high-powered, they are missing Tyler Eifert, who will be responsible for a large part of their offense this season. Let me confirm they are missing Tyler Eifert, their tight end. Tyler Eifert doesn't practice Monday, making Week 1 status at Jets unlikely. Okay, so that's gonna probably change. He might play, but it's looking like he's not going to play. They've got AJ Green. So without Tyler Eifert, AJ Green is the only above-average receiving target on this offense. Do we understand that? And the Jets have Darrelle Revis on D and Buster Screen. And both of those guys are going to give AJ Green a bit of a handful. I think AJ Green could smoke any of them, to be honest, because he's AJ Green. But what I am saying is, without a tight end in Tyler Eifert, and with a guy like Brandon LaFell, who is a bit of a journeyman, the Bengals don't really have a whole lot to go to on offense. And their defense is good, but I'm not really thinking about the defense that much. Their defense, Dunlap, Pecco, Atkins, Johnson, incredible defensive line. Vontez Burfict, Ray Maluga, Carlos Dansby. Oh my God, we could be perfect 7 from 7. Dre Kirkpatrick, Williams, Aloka, and Jones. Really, really, really strong defense. Okay, let's not get it twisted. However, you know, the Bengals offense might have a bit of a hard time getting matchup advantages on this Jets defense that has so much personnel and that's going to be bringing a lot of pressure. The Jets, plus 3.5 if they get there, will be something that I'm looking at very closely just because I think this game will be so close. And I think that the Bengals might have a hard time week 1 moving the ball against the Jets. It's an away game. I think they're going to have a hard time with it. Next, Cleveland Browns, boo. At Philadelphia Eagles, boo. 2 teams that just suck. Kind of really annoying to have to think about this game. But I'm going to do it because the Philadelphia Eagles just traded Sam Bradford to the Minnesota Vikings. So let me do this. Philadelphia Eagles starting quarterback. Because I don't even know. Okay, here we go. Carson Wentz named Eagles starting quarterback. And Carson Wentz. Pretty sure this is the dude who they just drafted. Alrighty then, North Dakota State University. Carson Wentz is 23 years of age, and he was drafted just this year gone. He was drafted by the Eagles with the 2nd overall pick of the 2016 NFL Draft. This is probably what the Eagles wanted anyway. They got rid of Sam Bradford, that bum who did so many bad things for them last year, and they went out and got Carson Wentz, who showed a lot of promise. Their GM loved them, and now they're going to get to start in week 1. And this is probably what they're going to want to go. Well, this is probably what they wanted to do the whole time. They got rid of Sam Bradford, who was a burden to that franchise, and now they can start fresh with a new guy and a new offensive coordinator. So it's going to be Carson Wentz. It's going to be Ryan Matthews and Darren Sproles. It's going to be Zach Ertz and Brent Selleck. It's going to be Jordy Matthews. This Eagles team, if Carson Wentz can get it going, are good. Their offense can be good. Okay. On defense, not too sure. What they've got going on here in terms of new acquisitions. They've got Byron Maxwell, Walter Thurman, Nolan Carroll, Jenkins, D'Amico Ryans, Michael Kendricks, Connor Barwin. You know what, man? This defense doesn't look all that bad. If we can get something from Carson Wentz happening for the Philadelphia Eagles, they could be a pretty formidable team this year because they do have a lot of good role players surrounding Carson Wentz. And we're talking about -4 against a team like the Cleveland Browns, who are probably the worst team in the NFL. Have Robert Griffin III starting quarterback. They have Isaiah Crowell and Duke Johnson in tailback. Their receiver is Terrell Pryor, who was a quarterback 5 years ago. Okay, their other receiver is Coleman. His name is Corey Coleman, and he is a rookie drafted in the 1st round. So I will tread carefully with Coleman. This guy could be a stud, but I haven't seen a whole lot from him. Their defense: Cooper, Sheldon, Hughes III, Ogba, Kirksey, Davis, Schobert, Joe Hayden, Calais Campbell, Jordan Poyer, and Jay Taylor. Okay, look, I'm going to be honest, man. I don't know who's playing defense for the Philadelphia Eagles. All I know is what I'm seeing right now is that the Philadelphia Eagles have gone from -7 to -4 on the basis of Sam Bradford being let kicked from the team. Not sure if Sam Bradford is worth that many points. Not sure how Carson Wentz is going to play. Not sure how Robert Griffin is going to play. But if we keep getting late money on the Cleveland Browns and these lines keep changing and we can get the Eagles at -3, I'm going to take the Eagles at -3. I might even do a day 1 2-team parlay. I don't love doing them, but I may do a day 1 2-team parlay. Something like the Philadelphia Eagles plus... who would I plus them with? Plus the Falcons, maybe, something like that. That's something that I might consider doing. 2 home teams starting it off. So let's just say the Cleveland Browns, they should not be trusted. And the Philadelphia Eagles, if they can get good quarterback play from Wentz, they have the pieces around him to get going, whereas the Browns right now have nothing. And RG3 is a dude who was drafted 2nd overall in 2012 by the Washington Redskins. In his rookie year, he led them to a playoff game and a division win, I think. He went down with a busted knee. He's been fighting to come back ever since. He finally got cut by the Washington Redskins, and now he's coming back to play for the Cleveland Browns. And, you're talking about an ideal situation for Robert Griffin III to revamp his career. This is not it. This is the opposite of ideal. You've got a former QB and wide receiver. You've got a rookie on the other side. You've got a tight end, Gary Barnidge, who is your best threat. And you've got a dual system running back core that I don't know how they're going to perform. So Robert Griffin may get hit again because he's playing a team at Philly this weekend who have some pass rushers. They got Connor Barwin. They got, a dude they got linebackers, D'Amico Ryans, Michael Kendricks. They're fast. They jump around. They hit hard. Don't know about it. Not too sure about the Browns' chances of winning this game this weekend. Next, Minnesota Vikings. My team at the Tennessee Titans. Vikings are -2.5. They lost Teddy Bridgewater for the entire season. Hardest loss injury I've ever had to deal with as a fan. Vikings opened as -3. They went into PK. Now they're back to -2, -2.5, which means Sam Bradford is making people jump around a little bit and thinking, hey, well, maybe he's going to be able to get this Vikings team back into a winning position. I am not betting on this game, okay? I love the Titans this year. I'm on them to win the AFC South. I'm on them to win over 5.5 games. That's already an investment in itself. Let's leave this game. We'll see how Sam Bradford fares as a Vikings QB. We'll see how the Tennessee Titans fare for our futures bets, and we'll just sit back and watch the scores, okay? We're not going to bet on this game at all. The Titans were already invested in. I don't want to invest too much on the Titans on a consistent basis, and the Vikings have such a good team outside Sam Bradford. What I would probably do if the Vikings were able to get into a situation where they were +1 or head-to-head, maybe I could bet on them. But right now at -2.5, I'm not touching it. I'm not touching anything. Let's move along. Next one, Miami Dolphins at the Seattle Seahawks. The Miami Dolphins right now are +10.5 at the Seattle Seahawks. Somebody tell me why the Miami Dolphins are +10.5. Oh, I know why, because the public loves the Seahawks. This game started at the Seattle Seahawks -7. They've since gone into -10.5. I don't know how that happens. The Seattle Seahawks don't have anybody new that I